I think that one was either 24 or 25 pounds on the hoof. It was a good sized bird. It was solid. Yeah.
I was going to be commenting about, I weigh more than 25 pounds. Who you calling a turkey?
I was going to say, but you're not a turkey.
Who you calling a turkey?
You're a bit of a Wolverine, but not a turkey.
Most of you call me an ass.
He's a honey badger.
Yes.
Because he don't give a shit.
He doesn't smell that bad.
I showered last week. I want to tell the story about how I first met Phil. I remember the day I met Phil.
Okay.
How's that?
This is scary.
Yeah, okay, before you even get filming, because I remember Phil when you used to own that gentleman's club called the Leaky Cheeky. He was such an entrepreneurial business guy, and I was just a little towel boy. I saw how hard he ran that place, how mean
What
he
he doesn't tell you is he started because he had a little establishment right next door called the Slipper Inn that was available by the hour.
It was good. You know, I went through a lot of water though, so they cut me off.
That's, well, you know.
So yeah,
It was the hazardous waste out back that was causing more of an issue.
exactly. But actually, Phil's actually been in the industry a lot longer than me. Thank God, because I don't want to look as old as him. But you know, but
I shaved my age off.
With Odell, like Odell Engineering, back when it was engineering and doing a lot of consulting work for the industry and stuff like that. And so we were bringing stuff in, things like that, and Phil would always be in the periphery. So he was dealing with FRT issues and questions in the industry and questions back then about with gun legislation that was being brought in. This is like the 2000s, early 2000s. So that was my first. And then he was selling. I can't remember what you were selling back then, but we were buying something.
Well, we
started off. It was just
we had Steyr, and you remember the HS50.
Yeah, that's it.
After we'd gone through that belt of idiocy in 1995, well, 92 we had the first go round, courtesy of the summer student in Sussex, Campbell. So that was what created the converted auto class. But then in 1995. When Chrétien got in and he did his first swing at it, and we had all of the various bands, you remember they went after all the 50 caliber stuff, but they went after it by name.
Yeah.
So the McBros, the Macmillans, there was the early Armalites.
Even
there was a bunch of these.
like weird ones.
Yeah. No, they actually didn't go after that one.
Serbu, yeah.
That was missed because I have one. They missed certain ones, and then Steyr came out with their HS50 after 95. And because there were some questions about how these things were how were variants being done. And here we are, 22 years later, still arguing about what is a variant, because they refused to define it.
Yeah.
You know,
well, there's if you don't want to define it. It leaves it open for them. I mean,
no, they want it to be defined as whatever they think of at the moment.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the way it goes. And it's anathema to anyone who has any form of technical background. And I mean, you're ex-military, so you know that the definition of goals and objectives is critical to success. And I'm an engineer. It's exactly the same thing. Well, they don't want any kind of defined goal or objective. Their objective is to get rid of everything. Well, the more definition you have, the less they can get rid of. But anyway, going back to what we were talking about, the HS50 came out, and so we thought, we can bring these in because they're not named. And so we did. And yes, you were one of our first partners that were selling a bunch of those out west. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, and then based on some of the feedback we got, they improved the trigger mechanism, and then they came out with the A1, which was a magazine-fed rifle.
Yeah.
The original gun was a single shot.
Yeah.
The magazine-fed gun came along later, but really, really nice rifle. Shot extremely well.
And for what you got from a Steyr back then, it was it was extremely reasonably priced for a 50 cal.
For a 50, yes, it was.
Yeah. You know, that held together. Like they're rock solid.
They are, and that particular gun with the factory barrel won the Raton 50, the 1,000-yard bench rest commercial category for years.
Oh, really?
And they're still winning down there. Yeah, because the barrels, you're right, the barrels are good. Steyr was always a precision manufacturer, so they put a lot of effort into making that gun shoot really well. What then caught up was ammunition. Because, I mean, when we were first starting out, we were looking around for the best lots of military surplus ammunition. And in fact, one of the best lots was actually an AP round, the C-48. We can't have those anymore. Well, actually, yes, we can.
Because it's a rifle round.
It's just a rifle round. And it's not incendiary.
No.
And they were really, really well made because the cores were far better made than the steel core in the ball ammo.
Yeah.
But now you've got companies like Hornady making the AMAX, a number of smaller companies custom making bullets. So we have really, really well made 50 caliber bullets, and these guys are reaching out with those things, you know, and they're getting some phenomenal results. They don't necessarily go in the big competitions because there is recoil. Let's face it, it's still a 50.
Yeah.
So guys are shooting King of 2 miles with 6 mils and 6.5s, and you know they're screaming fast out there. But
I mean, the
first 50 still does its thing.
And the first King of the 2 miles, there was a number of 50s in there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Because they were supersonic to that range, and very, very, very few things were supersonic to that range when they first started that.
Yeah.
So, you were saying earlier, you know, what got you into the game first off?
Well, I mean, I was in the military. I was a competition shooter. Like, I did service rifle and everything.
Yep.
And it's one of those, I always wanted to be a shooting instructor. Like, I wanted to retire from the military and be a shooting instructor. That's what I wanted to do. But there was no shooting schools. So it's kind of like, remember the old commercial of the ad? I like the razors so much, I bought the company. It's like,
yes.
I want to be a shooting instructor, and there was no shooting school, so I had to build a company.
Perfect.
So we built the range. So I used my business plan back in like 2000s to get out of the military as an earlier release for my contract. Took return of contributions instead of pension because I'd only had 12 years in at that time. Rolled the dice and opened up the shooting edge. So so it opened up in September of 2001. So yeah.
And now there's two.
No, there's 3 commercial ranges in Calgary.
No, I was going to say, you also grew so well.
Yeah.
You opened up Target Sports. Used the same idea.
Yeah.
And,
well, Target Sports, I bought an existing range, and then so somebody had opened up Target Sports there, but it was in such disarray. I'd bought in just to be a partner initially, and we signed all the due diligence on how they'd passed all their inspections, and they were good to go. And literally the day after I signed the contract and gave him my money, I got a registered letter from the RC or from this OPP in Ontario saying, "You've been ignoring our direction for 2 years. In 30 days, you're closed because of safety violations." I'm like, geez Louise. So I'm like, what the hell? So I flew back out to Ontario from Calgary, went to the OPP right away and said, "Listen, I have no idea. I just bought in. Give me a chance here. Because if you've been willing to sit back for 2 years, you should be willing to sit back for a little bit until I can sort this out."
Yeah.
So I had to come in and, God, is that you?
Yeah.
So I mean, we had to replace steel, the ventilation. So the guy had with the ventilation, because it was a recycling air vent system, that he didn't want to buy new filters, so he just pulled the filters. So it was just pulling the crappy air back of the ranges, bringing it in, throwing it through, and pushing it all over the
cycling it again. Oh my God.
So the good thing is that the lead had almost like static cling, so that the air coming out wasn't that bad. But we had to scrap the entire HVAC because it was so contaminated.
Oh,
you can't
it would be
clean
totally
it.
Contaminated.
Once you pull it, once the filters are pulled for a minute, it's just contaminated.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a punchy purchase. So at that point, it was basically, you're out of here.
You're in the game.
You're in the game.
So you've got the shooting edge and you've got targets.
And I bought the guy out and I said, like, here's a little bit of money. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out.
Well, I mean, it's a great facility because I go up there and you've got a super girl in Julie running it. So I mean, that's wonderful to see. I had some experience with them because they had taken in consignment a collection that included machine guns, converted autos, and a bunch of stuff. And when the fellow whose collection it was passed away, it was just a nightmare. And so his brother, who was the executor, got in touch with me and said, I'm not happy with this. Can you help me? So I helped him out, and the first thing we realized is that the entire collection had been seized by the OPP. So it was now in the Provincial Weapons Enforcement Unit / RCMP lockup, and we've still never got everything out. And that was probably 15 years ago. They were very happy, right? A new broom sweeps clean, and you were the new broom. Yeah, well, because for them, it's always better to recover a business than to have to go through a messy closure.
No. So what they did is this. So the RCMP and the OPP did the investigation. When we were doing renovations, the miles of cables for all of the bugs, for the listening devices that we pulled, like that were in the ceilings and everything, we're pulling everything down, like, what the hell is all this? And so they'd bugged the place, bugged phones, bugged everything, old school, like this is, and it was impressive. I was like, how the hell did you get in here after hours? And because nobody would know, get in here after hours and then put all this cabling in and wire this place in. I said, I want to meet the techs who did that because it was impressive.
Yeah. They had a few undercover people in there. There were pseudo instructors and stuff. Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it was a well done operation, and they can do that well. I think they learned a lot from the military on this, and they had a number of ex-military people that were involved in all of that, in teaching the Ontario cops, and it's it was interesting. But so where did it go from there? I mean, when I got into it, I didn't have a choice. My dad was a gunsmith. He'd apprenticed in England before the war as a gunmaker, had emigrated out to Canada, met my mother here, and he was working at Canadian Arsenals in Long Branch. Yeah, he did 2 tours at Canadian Arsenals. He was there from the early 50s through to 67, and then he moved to Lytton Systems. But during that time, he worked on the conversion from the Lee Enfield to the C1, and there's a bit of a parallel I'll get to, and he also worked on some of the new projects. So when they did the EM2, he was one of the guys who prototyped the EM2, the Canadian run of EM2s. They built all kinds of stuff for the Americans. They were building M14 parts, M203 parts. So we had a very interesting time there. Left for a period, and ended up going back in 73 and worked there running the tool room in 73 until it closed. And so again, lots of interesting stuff and background there. And so I'm growing up through all of this. He was with the Lawrence Scotts and shooting, and so I was kind of the team mascot, if you will. The guys would be out shooting their C1s, and I was running around cleaning up the brass while they were down checking targets. And it's hilarious. I'm 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and they go walking down range to check the targets, leaving 8 or 10 brand spanking new state-of-the-art military rifles, crates of ammunition with this 7-year-old, and nobody even thought anything of it. And I never thought anything of touching this stuff. It's like, no, that's not what you do. And this is something that I think is huge in our game, is the level of trust and the responsibility. Like a young person coming into this, and it's almost like they innately get it. Well, that you can cross the line, but there's no coming back.
No.
right? Like if you want to be on the side with the good guys and you want to have fun and you want to shoot this stuff and you want to learn all about this, hell, I went into an armory one time on a tour and I'm looking at this. He had a C1 submachine gun sitting on the thing. Well, I had this thing taken down, stripped down, and I'm taking the trigger mechanism apart, and I'm like 9. And this guy's like, "Oh, what are you doing, sir?" And I'm like, okay, first off, I'm looking for who he's talking to with sir, right? Very well trained. Like, the troops are wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm just looking at this and seeing how well it is. It's really well maintained. The guy goes, we're not allowed to take it apart that much, because this was an EMI-Tech's job.
Yeah.
But my dad, they were manufacturing them at Cal. Playing around with a C1 submachine gun was simple.
Yeah.
We did this all the time. So I had to put it all back together for the guy. But this was my introduction, and so, I mean, the other thing that happened is I inherited, unfortunately, my mother's eyes, so I had horrible vision. So I was wearing Coke bottle glasses at 9 years old. So entering the military was not really an option, because you would literally be a liability to the team, because you lose your glasses, you're NS, non-serviceable. So I went the technical route. So I went into engineering, and we'd been doing military contracts since the mid-70s on sniper rifles and stuff. Dad was working on those. We'd work on those in the basement in our own shop. When the laws changed the first go-round in 77, so when we lost the machine guns in 79, that also brought in business licenses. So we got our first business license, my dad and I, in 1982. And it's still the one license that we're running under, Phantom Forge. That's been continuously 40 years now. And so I really, like I said, didn't have a chance. I didn't have a choice. You wanted to be an instructor, so you made your way. I mean, I was just told, this is what you're going to do, son.
You're born in the business.
Born into the business and drug up in the business. So yeah, I started designing stuff when I was a kid. And the biggest shock when I went to university was this thing called tolerances. Because I would design something, and if I wanted it to be 6.387 inches long, my dad was a gauge maker. That was the size it was. There wasn't such a thing as a tolerance. So it was very interesting. And then I moved from there to work at Dymaco. And the C7, I spent 10 years at Dymaco. And Dad did the transition from the Lee Enfield to the C1. I worked on the C1 repair and overhaul line and did the transition to the C7. So I was
That's awesome.
that was kind of a real parallel. And we were using Canadian Arsenal's tooling. And so every once in a while I'd get my dad in for lunch. They'd buy him lunch, and he'd work with our guys at the plant on some of this old tooling, and he'd go, "Oh, no, that didn't work that way." And that drawing doesn't reflect the parts that actually work. So it was a ton of fun. We had a lot of fun, and right up until Dad passed at 81, we worked together in the company and in Odell Engineering. So that, like I said, I was bound. I was going to be in the business whether I wanted to or not. So, but
that's cool.
You went the other side with the training, and you applied your background in the military, and you developed a fantastic facility in Calgary, which, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of people who've tried to follow that model.
And we have, and I think, because I basically copied the thought process of Ken Couch. So Ken, like an amazing shooter, and I gotta say, like, I've never met anybody who could just pick up any gun and shoot it well. Like, it infuriates me. Like, I gotta work hard, and Ken would just pick up anything. He was a world IPSC champion, then he went into PPC, then IPSC, and then now he's into sporting clay, and he's like one of the top tier sporting clay guys. And he just picked up shotguns a couple years ago. Like, oh, and he was cowboy action, like international cowboy action champion for like 5 years. Like, just, oh, gun, bang, bullseye, yay! Like, fuck you, Ken. So, but he opened the first range, like in West Edmonton Mall, that did walk-ins.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, like, and then I kind of didn't like how he was doing it in such ways, because it was in the mall, so it was like a sausage fest. It's almost like you walked in line, there was a gun there, you walked up, bang, 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 out. Like, just it was kind of like this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be different. I was trying to find a different way to do it so you could get people to try it and then get them to come into the sport. Right? Because so it was just a different end result I wanted. But he's the first guy who got the licensing to do it. Because after I opened the Shooting Edge and I had it rocking and rolling, I actually had a phone call from the CFO from Ontario when I just bought Target Sports. And they said, yeah, like, we really wish you success and stuff, but you know how you do things in Alberta? Yeah, you're not doing it here in Ontario. And I went, oh, really?
Yep.
Hang on, hold my fucking beer. It's like, I really hate authoritarian bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we've gotten some really good court cases, like the recent one that CFOs can't just make up their own rules and policies.
Yes.
Right?
And some were.
They were. And
cowboying it.
That was the whole point. I mean, I'd run into all kinds of issues over the years when I first took over Target to get to be able to do I call them familiarization programs, because we're not renting guns. We're getting people in who have never touched a gun. Most will never touch a gun again, but if we get them in and we give them this experience and they give them this safety brief and this handling, and they come by and they go, oh, that was tons of fun. I felt really safe. So when they talk about taking away all our guns, or they say, oh, those gun guys are crazy, they go, well, I went into Target Sports, or I went into Shooting Edge. I had a good time. And I didn't see any tinfoil on heads. I didn't see people standing up on soapboxes saying that the country is coming apart. No, they can keep their guns. They're pretty good. Like, I'd rather, instead of spending $5 billion on that, I'd rather have a new hospital, thanks.
Exactly.
Right? So I think that was my philosophy, is to take the 60% of the population that doesn't give a shit one way or the other about guns and gluing them to that fence. So
yes.
that was my philosophy, my time trying to run Shooting Edge and Target Sports. In the familial programs, you bring people in, do that, and you glue them on there so that they don't turn into antis. But some may leak over and become gun owners, but if nothing else, they don't see us as a threat to society.
No, that's right. And remember the discussion on stage yesterday, we were talking about that. And there's 30 to 40% of the country are either firearms owners, married to, sons, daughters, grandparents of, and they understand the community because they have a first touch with somebody who's in the community, and they know exactly how we operate. They know that, those if it bleeds, it leads stories. Those aren't about legal gun owners, and they innately understand that. There's certain people, a group of people, that are never going to understand and don't want to. But there's also a large block, as big as the gun owners, so 30-40% of the country, that are what I call typical Canadians. They don't know. They're not going to get bullied. They wanna know better. And so doing an introduction, it's like, okay, that's cool. It's not my thing. I prefer to, ride my motorcycle, fly my airplane, rebuild my Corvette. Cool.
Yeah.
That's your thing. Knock yourself out, have a great time at it. Yeah. And they're going to sit there having had one of those experiences like you're talking about and go, yeah, those guys aren't the problem.
No.
Dear Mr. Mainstream Media, there's a two-word answer for that, and the initials are BS.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a massive, silent, super minority of Canadians that are in that boat. They either already have had an experience and have rendered an opinion that, no, legal gun owners are not an issue. Letting criminals out of jail early, or not putting them in jail in the first place, now we've got a problem. But legal gun owners, not an issue. And then there's another bunch there, and thank you to guys like you. I mean, we distribute. You're actually frontline, face-to-face with people, and you're reducing the unknown part of that ambivalent group every single day. And you're turning them into either, as you said, some of them are going to leak into being, hey, this is cool, I actually want to do this. Or they're going to say, it's not my thing, but I don't care. And it's your thing, enjoy it, have a good time.
Yeah, so
and so
I don't
when the
care.
issues come up, they're going to sit there and go, yeah, sorry, dear Mr. Media, dear Mr. Government, no, that dog don't hunt to me.
Well, it was
These
interesting.
people are good people.
It's interesting. The Liberal Party just did their own internal poll about what the priorities were, and in this big push with the guns, only 8% felt that any more gun control was a priority. Like, so even in their own party, 8%. Right? It's not even on their radar.
And I think if you and they probably didn't, but I think if you kind of dissected that a little further, you'd probably find that 92% realize it's a losing issue.
Yeah.
Because you're flogging a dead horse, and not only that, you're upsetting people who may be sympathetic to other things you do, and you're driving them further away from the party.
But I think too,
It doesn't bother me because it's good for me as a gun owner that people think of other political options than the Liberal Party. But I sincerely think there's a lot of people in there that are having heart-to-heart moments of, is this the right thing to do? And I think you and I would agree, the answer is no. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of resources, and you're actually adding to the criminal element, not reducing it.
Yeah, I agree. So a little fun fact for us, for the ranges, is we now know through our point of sale stuff that in the last 20 years, we've had over 250,000 new shooters go through our program.
Wow, that's amazing.
I was just like, but now we got to keep that going. It is God.
Rod, not God. Rod.
Oh, see, Rod. Raw. So we Shooting Edge Calgary. We wanted to put an ad on. Like we said, I'm not run scared now. Like I'm tired of it. So we wanted to put ads on TV and on radio. So
excellent.
So we applied global in Calgary because it has like the biggest draw, and I wanted to be in the morning news. That's when I wanted to have our ads.
Fabulous.
Right? And it took 6 weeks to get CRTC permission to put a gun ad on TV. One thing, and one of the only reasons they agreed to it is because the news is considered adult programming.
Yep.
So it was okay then. But then when they came out with the guidelines of what we could do, we couldn't show a gun, ammunition, somebody shooting in the ad. And we're like,
what's in prime time? Oh yeah. People misusing firearms with the benefit of Hollywood.
Exactly. But I mean, the people who are in charge of our account were like, yeah, this is dumb. We get it. So we're like, how the hell are they going to film something that people actually know what you do? The end product that they filmed is actually pretty amazing. People going in the range, putting stuff down, talking. There's targets. Like the way they did it, I was actually like, holy shit, you know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. They've told the story, but there is nothing. Like there's no guns, nothing. And they even they said, well, they didn't say we couldn't use silhouette targets, so we put silhouette targets out. Like the people who filmed it said, screw it. Because they thought the rules were so ridiculous. Like this is gonna air, and we're gonna have a killing, and they're gonna have like Hawaii 5. They're gonna have all these shows on, like you said, with all this gun, and they're worried about stuff. So they said, we'll put it. If they tell us to edit it out, we got other footage with the round targets. Yep. So it was pretty funny, but
that was actually outstanding.
Yeah, and so we did that. It was actually pretty funny.
You got to send us that clip so we can cycle that up on ours, because I love to support our people.
Yeah, and I thought it was so funny that we could do that, but it took so long to do with so many conditions. They go, yeah, I go, is this normal? And they go, no, it's not normal. But it is what it is, right? So it's pretty funny. But
it's interesting, different but the same. Going back to '95, and when they changed the laws, one of the good things that came out of it is they opened up a lot of institutional, industrial applications, which didn't exist before. But one of the things that they forgot in opening all of this stuff up, because you need to be able to supply firearms to the military and firearms to to the movie industry. You got a whole lot of other things, manufacturing. Prior to that, it was illegal to manufacture a firearm, a full auto firearm, even for the government. I mean, when I was started in TACCOM, the way the contract was structured, we sold the government a forged lower receiver, and they contracted us to machine it into a gun, because then it was the government's product already. We couldn't actually legally manufacture an automatic firearm and hold it as a company.
No.
So when you come in, one of the first things you see is you'd see lower receiver forgings being serialized. And you're like, well, what happens if something gets wrong? Well, we just scrap, and that particular number never exists. Well, that's kind of dumb. Well, but it is what it is, and this was the reason why. Because the forgings were sold as a serialized forging, then we machined it into a gun and did all the rest of it. It was, you know, the goofiness and the unintended consequences of laws continue to provide hours of baffling entertainment. But when 95 came in, you know, you were talking about ranges and advertising, all this. One of the things that they completely forgot, and we actually added, our company, 3 industrial purposes that they'd missed. Training. They completely missed the concept of training. And at the time, I was going down to the Peace Support Training Center in Kingston, and every United Nations multinational observer that was leaving the country went through my course on foreign firearms identification. And we were consistently rated the #1 course in the kids going through this, because first off, it wasn't a snooze fest. I had a load of props, right? Guns, ammunition, magazines, clips, because we know they're not the same.
No.
And the first thing I said is, okay, this is a hands-on course. Get down here. Because you put a bunch of kids in a classroom, what's the first thing they do? They start filling it in from the back forward. So
just like church.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm down there, and all of a sudden they're like, and they're seeing all these guns. Where did they come from? My company and my personal collection. So we as individuals in the world, we're now supplying a firearms-based training course to the military that they cannot do themselves. They had no chance to do this because, 1, they had no access. 2, they had no ability to store it, even if they did have it, and they didn't know how to begin to operate and talk to people about it. So I started doing this, and I went down, literally, we rotated them every 3 months. They would be going in, so they would do their workup, and then and the way it worked out, they rotated half at a time. So normally it's a 6 month, so it's a 6-month workup, 6-month deployment. Well, and then there's a second group on a 3-month stagger. And I don't know whether you ever did any UN missions, but that's how the ones, and especially the big ones we were doing, were down in Central America. So Spanish mandatory. Well, who spoke Spanish in the Canadian Forces? 3 or 4 guys in combat arms, and a gazillion logistics techs, cooks, nurses. So I'd get a class in, and there'd be 20 UN UNMOs that are going to deploy. I'd have a combat arms guy who was familiar probably with a C7 and a C9, didn't know what an AK was except the silhouette, because they'd done that in firearms identification course. But none of the other stuff that they were running into down there. AR-10s, G3s, tons of G3s, Galils, even old stuff, lever action guns, right? Bolt action rifles, pump shotguns. They're all over the place down there. Well, they have no experience with that in the military. So the guy may be the world's greatest machine gunner, but you hand him a slide action, and if it's an odd one, he has no idea how to even clear it and make it safe.
Oh, I know.
So we did this and had an ace time, but that was completely missed when they changed the laws in 95. It would have suddenly become illegal. So I had a contract. So I'm like, guys, this is a bit of an issue. And they're like, oh, And who are you doing this for? Why can't they do this? Well, they can't. We have to do it for them and help them out. Oh, shit. Okay. So back to Ottawa it goes, and we work back and forth. And I got to say, the CFO's office at the time could not have been more helpful. These guys were sitting there going, yeah, you deserve to be able to do this. This is your business. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not doing anything wrong. You're asking us up front. So we got a massively wide open license because we did not abuse it and because we were helping people.
I think that's
so
a lot
they helped
too.
us.
With the CFO's offices, I think.
And they run hot and cold.
Yeah, but a lot of it comes to is once they have that feeling of trust, because I like to tell my staff, remind them, we don't sell cotton candy. We operate based on faith with the public that we are doing everything in their best interest in public safety.
Yes.
Within our envelope, right? And I think once the CFO's office, I think I've found that they get that comfort level with your appreciation of the trust that you need to have and operate with, then it seems that the door opens and they're willing to have conversations, right? And we're not running businesses where we're just trying to get all these additional things on so we can have a great private collection. We actually are doing things with it.
Absolutely. And how many times have you been the one to make the call on a situation? And I was in when we had when we did have a retail outlet. I was in there, and a person came in, and it was like, this was obviously an illegal gun. It was a sawed-off shotgun. Obviously illegal. This person was obviously substance enhanced, and so we kind of tried to ease it out and tried to kind of buy this thing out and get it away from him, and he just got a little twitchy. Well, and Ben, you met. It was like, as soon as this guy walked out, it's like, get out the back door, get the license number and make and model. And I'm already on the phone to the local PD, and he comes back in, here it is. I said, okay, this is a guy, he left here going this direction, and he has what's an obviously illegal firearm. I mean, sawed-off shotgun's prohibited, always has been. So this was an individual out of the criminal element that was just trying to get 20 or 30 bucks for his next drug, just selling off the thing he had. And so they picked him up. This guy had a pile of outstanding warrants on him. And the beauty was our surveillance footage. Here you go, boys. Here's him, clearly in possession of this thing, trying to sell it, and then taking it back and leaving. Well, I think he's still in jail because of some of the stuff he had. You got to have had things happen.
A similar guy comes in going, hey, I need a magazine for my pistol. I'm like, oh, what kind of pistol is it? Hang on. Boonk. This one. Oh, I think I have one in the back. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, give my pistol back. No, you're not getting that back. Well, I'm gonna come take it from you. Okay, we're in a gun store. We are wearing guns with bullets in them, and you just gave me your gun. How about you leave? And then we're gonna follow you, and we're gonna get your car license. Like, no, you're not leaving with this guy.
And that's that's a horrible. I mean, that's a crazy thing.
Or you get people like come in with their not thinking it's a gun, like what's called like little blunderbusses, but they're cap, right? Yep. They're not flintlock, and they're like, oh well, I just built this percussion cap, and you're like, well, no, that's a gun. You need a license for that. No, I don't. Oh, yeah, you do.
Yeah, actually,
like,
you do.
You do, and like, oh, what do I do with that? Well, you can leave it here because like, and get on a course. We'll score it for you. Well, it only cost me like $30 at a garage sale. Well, then, have a nice day. And we're gonna use this for training for our PAL course to say, you buy this at a garage sale, it's a firearm.
Yep.
Stuff like that. But when we call NWES to say, hey, how do you want us to deal with this stuff? That's like NWES for the readers, like the
National Weapons Enforcement Support.
Yeah. So the guys that basically. Help the cops.
You know what that was originally called?
No.
The National Firearms Enforcement Support Team. NFEST.
NFEST.
And they went, oh, that's not a good name.
I'm gonna start
and they quickly changed it.
The infestation. They're really good. I've never met the guys, like on all the NWEST teams that I've dealt with, that weren't great gun owner dudes and dudettes. Like
we had a little bit of hot and cold in the East, as you can imagine. Our politics run a little, let's just go a little sinistra compared to the West.
Yeah.
But we have had, in fact, funnily enough, I had a guy going back to that range sports seizure. He was the guy we got that eventually had to release the firearms to us. Not happy. But we're going through this, and he goes, well, what this is of this? And I said, well, actually, here's how the classification and why it is what it is and why it's okay. He goes, well, we're just going to put that aside. Okay. Well, it was like 100 guns. And at the end, there was 3 guns. And I'm just sitting there, and my buddy's he's one of the guys that was working with me getting these things, and he's working behind them. And he's telling me later, he said, the 2 guys got their heads together, and they're like, oh, I don't know whether we should release these guns. And the one guy says, look, these guys know so much more about this stuff than we have any idea about. He says, I'll tell you right now, I'll guarantee you he's right. So I don't think we should upset him. Okay. Yeah. And the long and the short of that story is, subsequent to this, we got phone calls from them when they needed help.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we established a relationship, and this guy I'll call John, who was rabidly anti-private firearms, all of a sudden became a lot more rational. I would never say he became a friend, but he became an acquaintance. And when he retired, he was looking, so he called me up and he said, hey, I've got into hunting and I need to get something. What would you recommend? And so,
that's good.
These relationships do come full circle.
Oh,
and
we had a great relationship with NWest in Calgary. We were broken into, it was like, let's say 10, 12 years ago. And they got a couple of guns. Anyway, so the cops come and the NWest guy shows up. I'm like, hey, call him John. John, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, yeah, you want me here. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah,
and he goes in there and he conflabs and he comes back, and it went from like 15 cops in the building to 2. Yep. And I go, what's going on? He goes, oh yeah, they wanted me to come down here and tell them that you were basically storing them incorrectly so they could fucking shut down your whole operation for the robbery. I told them that you far exceed all the rules and regulations and to leave you alone. Yep. And I was like, oh, thanks, buddy. Yep. And so it went from like we were the problem to we exceeded all the rules, and then it was just an investigation. Mm-hmm. So we quite like our NWest guys. Yeah. I would have, they just would have seized all the guns and then made us jump through all the ringers. Who knows how long till we could prove that we were in the right? How much we would have spent? Like, it would have bankrupted me probably.
It would, and the worst part of that is, the Crowns are playing with tax money, so they don't care how long it takes.
Yeah,
and they don't care what kind of difficulties they put you through. Mm-hmm. Now, fortunately, the vast overwhelming majority of them are decent. Yeah. But once in a while, you get a zealot, and that's when it's really handy if there's somebody on the other side says, these people are not the problem, and they've been very helpful to us. And we would hate to lose the cooperation of the legal firearms community because you were a dumbass.
Especially the front line. Like, we're there on the front line trying to sort this all out. We're trying to make people legal, trying to educate them, because people call us first because they don't want to call the government. They want to talk to us and say, how do I do this? Because I don't want to call and tell the government my name and number, and I might be breaking the law or not. They want to wander and say, hey, Shooting Edge, hey, Target Sports, hey, Odell, is this legal, not legal? Am I in trouble, or how do I fix this? Like, how do I move these guns legally because I'm moving, or I moved. I don't want to call them, like, are they going to come and arrest me? Like, and that's we do a lot of those questions, and we help a lot of people with that. So it's really important that we maintain that relationship, a professional relationship. They're not our friends, but they need to be our allies.
Yep. And a lot of times, and probably a lot more than we need them, they need us.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you, probably not, but as an importer, once or twice a week I'm getting trace requests.
Yeah.
And it's not always our firearms, but a lot of times in that group, there'll be ones that they're kind of lost.
They don't know where to start.
And so they're looking for help. So they kind of go to people who've helped them in the past.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, okay, no, we didn't import that, but maybe you want to call this guy. He might be able to help you out. Awesome, thanks. So we have a very good relationship with the Firearms Tracing Center. And that's,
And they've,
that's a good one. And I've even got them, and I'm not going to say trained, but I've got them to the point that I'm like, if this is a run-of-the-mill, you came across this thing, that's one thing. If it's an active investigation, tell me it's an active investigation. Tell me it was seized at an actual crime scene. It's not some estate gun you've come across. And they're like, well, and I'm like,
there's a level of...
I will definitely go the extra mile. If you tell me this is a crime gun, that I don't want that. I don't want any of my firearms I imported ever involved in a crime. The reality is, someplace, sometime, it's going to happen, because the firearm does not have a conscience.
No, we
right?
get that.
The individuals commit crimes, objects don't, and so they've now to the point of saying, oh yeah. So if I get a message, it's like seized in an active criminal investigation. Great.
Yeah.
That gets
We'll
answered within hours.
Yeah, we'll get the guys on that. Go through the systems, find it. Again, we don't want shit pumps on the street getting off because we couldn't prove anything.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sometimes just being able to give them a hint of a direction to go or an area to look in. It helps. And as you say, criminals with guns we don't ever want to see a criminal with a firearm.
Yeah.
So we just carry on. I mean, we've had so many interesting arrangements like that, and I had one with a fella, and rarely will a police officer tell you they were wrong. Yeah. Like, it's just something that you don't often see. Well, we had an estate come in, and according to the system, this fella had a couple of hundred firearms. We had more than that in prohib handguns when we cleaned the house out. This guy must have been going to every widow funeral in the eastern part of the country and just saying, oh, I'll take care of that. No real malice of intent, just he got overwhelmed. And then people would start, oh yeah, you were looking after that for Billy, so you can help me. We get to the end, and we got all this stuff. So we cleaned it up, legalized everything we could, but there was a whole bunch of other odds and ends. And the investigating officer was saying, you need to give us those. It was actually, you need to give us those so we can destroy them. And I went, no. First off, you've got value in the estate. This is not the widow's problem, right? And most of these guns were legal at some point. And the others, you can't prove were ever in a crime. So there's nothing wrong. These are not crime guns. They're just guns that ended up in a guy's basement. And this guy, no. And I said, okay, well, first off, if you want them, you're going to have to seize them. No, you're going to give them to us. Nope.
Yeah, not happening.
And then the discussion went on behind closed doors, and I talked to the guy, and he's like, look, they brought this to us. They have ungraded, it was in the hundreds of firearms that were missing in the system. Ghost guns. They'd lost track of them. They had no idea where they were. If we're dumb, we're never going to see another one of these guns. This is one of the cops talking to this other guy. And he said, and beside the point, if you look at the rules and regulations, he's right. There's a traceability on those, so they should be legally transferred. And it affected two of us. And the guy came back and he finally said, yeah, I understand what you're saying. So one person converted, like you said. One at a time, you convert people. These guys aren't the problem. These guns aren't the problem. Yes, we should come back. And I got a very nice email from the guy saying, thank you for working with us. Thank you for bringing these to our attention. He said, my apologies. I was incorrect in my interpretation of the law. And I mean, to have an OPP inspector say, I was incorrect, well, that may be the first time in the history of ever. But this guy was a real professional. And he came back and he said, thank you for showing us what was going on, bringing us in. He said, and I appreciate you educating me on this. He said, and going forward, I now know.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I try to explain to the staff too, because they say, "Oh, these cops don't know anything." I go, "Well, you know what? They have to know the Narcotics Act, the Transfer Act. They have to know traffic. They have to know all of these acts. We got to know the Firearms Act.
Yep.
Like we have to know 100 pages. They have to own. They have to try to know 6,000 pages. Cut them some slack."
Oh yeah.
And so when they come in, they're like this. They say, "Well, no, like, we'll educate them. We'll be firm, but they don't know. And if we can get through to them, we can again get that point. But we have to go in that.
Win.
Yeah, it's a win. We have to go in that into this knowing that they can't know everything because they have so much they need to know, right? And firearms is just one small little piece of it, because all they know about firearms is the illegal use of it and then to charge everybody, not about the legal ownership. So I get it.
Because legal owners don't have adverse interactions with law enforcement.
Right, they don't. So that's the thing. So I try to get that to my staff so they don't get all arrogant or all cranky or all high and mighty when these issues come up. Say, well, take a step back. Say, hey, I get it. Firearms for you guys are as a tool, and you see them as a bad thing when they're misused. Don't worry. Hey, let's explain this. We'll get a copy of the Firearms Act. We'll explain to you why we're doing what we're doing. Like we keep and do that. So it's pretty good. So I think that's good. But I think probably Chris here wants to move on. I think I want to ask you, because I have my opinion on the industry and its interactions on how it's getting along. So, I mean, that's the one thing with all the laws and stuff. We don't know what's going on. Like, but I just want the government to make a decision on something so we know where to pivot.
Yeah.
But how do you think the industry is getting along?
I think the industry is getting along probably, well, not even probably. I know the industry is getting along better now than it ever has in the history of Canada. And it comes out of all of these incidents that we've all had to deal with, in that we used to be thousands of individuals. Well, everybody's still an individual, but we're now a group of individuals, and we all talk to one another. We discovered that we have far more in common than we have different. Even the guy who's, a black powder hunter versus a guy who's a machine gun collector. It's all about firearms. It's all about interesting stuff. The people are interesting. What they do is cool. Maybe it's not your thing, but it's cool. And I see the relationships broadening. I mean, we have our insurance guy here. Yeah. He's a hoot, right? Like Zach, and he's a wonderful, wonderful soul, and he's become truly a pillar in our community, because he's saved so many of us from a lot of grief that could literally prevent us running a business.
I'll do the plug right now. Anybody, you guys who are not dealing with Capri Insurance, in my first year switching to Capri, he saved me $80,000 in my insurance. $80,000. So if any businesses out there are not dealing with Capri, yeah, you suck.
Well, at least give him a call, give him a try, give him an opportunity to help you out.
Yeah,
we've broadened the community. I mean, what we're doing here with the crazies from BS Podcast.
Yeah. Now they're nuts.
Well, yeah, but in a nice way.
Yeah.
We've got media people that are very much pro firearms, and it's a lot of times it's parallel media people. Yeah. Podcasts, Instagram people, and they're out here having a ton of fun, and so the community has gotten bigger. I think one of the things that you alluded to earlier is a massive change. It's a sea change. When I was growing up and you were a firearm owner, you were very secretive about it. Not that you were doing anything illegal, you just wanted to go along, be left alone, do your thing. And that tends to fall into the original old gunny type, just I'm doing my thing, leave me alone, I'm not hurting anybody, you do go do your thing. But politically, that was the worst thing we could do
100%.
Because we became invisible to the government. So they never paid any attention to us, to our rights, to the implications of changes that they would make on us. And we're a huge community.
See, and
massive community.
I look at the opposite, is because we stayed invisible, it allowed them to attack us and do everything.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't have a voice.
We had voices, but it was one guy in the woods here, one guy in the woods here, one lady over here. It was not a coordinated voice that brought the people together to give it volume so the government understood, okay, I'm now stepping on the toes of 5 million Canadians.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is just an enormous change that I've seen, and everybody in the community has become so much more tolerant. Like, I always liked the military side. Came from my dad. He was a veteran, and he was a gun maker. And quite frankly, automatic firearms are really interesting as a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
Hugely interesting. So I kind of collect those. And people would be like, why do you want that? Well, that's not a question that should ever be asked in a constitutional republic. We respect minorities as well as majorities. It's not a democracy where the majority stomps everyone. We are a country that has historically respected minorities. I mean, we all know of some of the incidents that have happened in our past. To the proof of my point, we are still 50, 70 years on from some of these incidents, 100 years on from some of these incidents, as a country feeling a sense of, not necessarily guilt, but I would certainly say remorse, because we weren't the people who did it. But there's definitely a remorse, and there's definitely a strong feeling of, never again. We're not going to let this happen again, because that's how we are. And I think, as gun owners, we're at the forefront of that community. We recognize these things, and we're a welcoming group. I mean, you take a whole pile of Canadians, you throw them in a room, try and pick the gun owners. You can't, because they could all be firearms owners, or none of them could be. You can't tell the difference. We come from all walks of life. We come from all shapes and sizes. We have, people who are handicapped, people who have got, medical issues. We don't care. Firearms and shooting is one, it's sport for life, and two, it's a welcoming sport.
And it's gender neutral. Like,
it's totally
the
gender
shooting
neutral.
sports are gender neutral.
However many genders you think there is, we're neutral.
You can paint your stock as many colors as you want.
Exactly, or every color you want. And we'll do that.
Yeah.
And funny as you say on that, I started in target rifle, and the 1,000-yard belly shooters. And when they discovered fiberglass stocks, you discovered people had one hell of a sense of humor, because those stocks became very colorful.
Yeah.
But yes, it's kind of a trite way of looking at a serious point.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to belittle a point, but you're exactly right. We are welcoming to everyone.
Yeah. And I think the sport is good. And I think the industry itself is maturing as well. I would say when I first opened my business, even up to probably about 5 years ago, there was so much animosity between a lot of dealers. Like, dealers didn't want to deal with other dealers, or if you were doing well, it was because somehow you stole an opportunity, not because you offered a better service or a better issue, better things. It was somehow, you stole you're stealing my market share. No, I'm building my market share, and I think there's been a shift because when stores used to be, the guy was a hobby and opened a store. Now you're getting a lot more people, I think, who are business-minded, opening a business or buying into a business. So they're looking at their business sense, so they're willing to talk to other businesses, don't view them adversarially. And I'm seeing a maturity in the industry starting to come around, and I really like that. And I
would totally agree.
I hope we can keep that momentum going.
In Southern Ontario, we have a real concentration of businesses. We do our range day, we'll get 40 businesses to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really, the only other place we get that is in Vegas at SHOT Show, because people come from all over the country. Getting 40 businesses represented at a single location, really this is about the only place you can do it, with any degree of reasonable chance. And I see them get together, and now they all know one another. Yeah. And they'll refer people one to the other. No, we don't have that. We don't have that. Canuck whatever. But have you tried? Randy's place, or have you tried Bill's place? Because I know they had some in. They may be able to help you out. Because if you refer business there, next time you don't have something,
but
you're going to send it down the road.
As we find now, it's more like, hey, Brian at Proline. This guy said that if he bought this, you're going to do this for this special price. He goes, No, he told me that he was at yours and you were going to do that deal. I said, well, no, I'm not doing that deal. He says, we're not doing it either. Okay, thanks, Brian. Excuse me, sir, no. And if you go back to Cabela or down to Pearl, it's probably going to be another $20 more because, you know, when mom says no, don't ask dad. And
exactly.
So, but the relationship is that we can call each other and ask these questions. We don't jump to conclusions right away that guy's trying to screw me. It's more like, I think this customer is trying to pull the wool over my eyes.
Yeah.
You know?
We have that as a distributor. We have that probably more with MAP pricing, minimum advertised price, and you know, and invariably it's oh shit, what did the graphic guy? And it's not hostile. Like, you know, you can't tell me. It's like, oh yeah, no, sorry, because if you make no money, you're not going to be around next week.
No.
And everybody understands that. And I think even the customers, and I shouldn't say even, I think the customers 100% understand, and especially after this last 5 years, they really understand that businesses need to make margin, reasonable margin.
Yep.
But they need to make margin in order to survive. And if they do well and you support them, you get more fun stuff and you get more selection.
And I don't think
good.
I don't think the public realizes on what type margins our industry operates on compared to so many other industries. It's like, holy shit, you guys can charge that? It's like, whoa, like we don't charge nearly the margins that so many other industries and sports and hobbies do. And so when they start nickel and diming us, it's like, no, like you know, my guys don't get paid minimum wage. We can't do it for that. Like I'd rather have it sit on my shelf and only have 2 in. I can't order 5 in because I don't want to make 5 points on them because the time it takes, I'm lost money again.
Yep.
Right? Because there's got to be some margin in it. But our industry runs on such tight margins.
It does.
And it has. In the last 20 years, I've seen it drop significantly.
Well,
you know?
we had an incident where Border Services redefined one of our product lines, and we went from a 0 to a 7% duty. Well, that 100% ate all of our margin on that line for the balance of the year because we'd committed to prices. And people are like, well, you're raising the price. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because our cost got raised on us, and you know, things like that, it's a sunk cost. And if it had been done a slightly different way, they say, oh yeah, no, we don't have to charge you duty, but because we decided you're doing it through a certain delivery system, yeah, we're going to charge you duty now. Oh, great. Those are things that, you know, you trip over, and you know, the general public doesn't see that. I mean, I'm sure you have all the same stuff on the retail side and especially with the range side, that, you know, they mandate a change in filtration, you know, right? Occupational health and safety. You're that deep in all of that stuff. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me at all because I'm a distributor. Yeah. But, you know, different aspects of the industry face different challenges.
Arbitrary changes in the allowable amount of lead in the air. Like, okay, where's the engineering study? Oh no, we just think it should be less. It's like,
and so it happens. Yeah. Where do you see the shooting edge and target going now, and with the changes?
Well, we're going to see what the changes really are, and because I'm not a sky is falling kind of guy, and I don't want us to be, and I don't want the industry to be that way, because I mean, I own the 2 stores in the UK called William Evans, you know that. Yep. And so I've been through this in the UK. I've seen the changes in government and the changes in use and what you can own and all these things. And I've seen how the industry there, no stores went bankrupt. They just had to pivot. They had to say, okay, well, this is what we can have, so we'll have these now, and this and that. We can't have that, so we'll sort this out. There's transition. It's a little painful, but it's still a vibrant, sporting, you know, store industry. And so
have you seen the customers do the same thing as these changes occurred?
Yeah,
they haven't abandoned you. They've kind of evolved what they do.
They evolved because people like to shoot. And if now you say, well, you can't shoot semi-autos in the ranges, then they go to, let's go to. They're going to do combat shooting with side-by-sides. So it could be 2 rounds. They're going to do over-unders, or they get special permission for pump, or they're going to do, like, they'll find ways to do different activities. what it is that the organizations that run competitions and that have to evolve quickly to say, okay, well, this is what the rules say we can do now. Let's change our competitions to this so people can morph into this. And so I think that's that's really important, is that people will change. And I've always maintained for 20 years that if the government keeps picking on us and the last thing we're allowed is slingshots, well, there will be a market for platinum crusted, jewelry encrusted
Tactical
slingshots with fucking add-ons and holders for extra ammo, and we will find that way, because we're 12-year-olds with gun licenses. We want to have fun.
Yep.
Right? And so there will be that. And then you'll get that, and you'll get the nicer shotguns, and you'll get the nicer rifles. And so we will find a way, and we will outlive these governments. So everybody just has to, just relax and find out what actually happens versus what the Liberals make an announcement on.
True.
Right? They make a press release.
The
all
legislation
panic.
doesn't reflect the press release.
Right, and it rarely does at the end. If it's an OIC, well, then it's whatever the OIC is. They can screw us on that. But if they have to go through legislative areas, remember, I've talked to a number of the senators, and it's one thing they said for public safety to limit, or like C-71. They said, well, C-71 was about public safety, so they were behind it. When they said, and then I said, well, what happens if they're going to ban guns? Ooh, when you start banning things and taking things away, that's a different kettle of fish. Like, that needs a real serious discussion.
Yep.
And I'm like, these are Liberal senators, so like, it's not going to be an easy task. C-71 took a year to pass, and they all thought it was a decent thing. Like, new handgun legislation that really is making products, like making everybody's products valueless, right? They're making our collections valueless.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't like that as much. Like, there isn't as much appetite for that. So I think
wait till Revenue Canada gets involved when you declare a capital loss.
Yep. I was asking that, and my account says, well, I don't think it can. So, well, I'm going to try.
Absolutely.
I said they've taken all my guns and made them worthless.
And it was arbitrarily done by the government beyond your control.
Yeah.
I think it meets all the criteria.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how long it takes for it. So, and as far as that, I'm fairly buffered because I have shooting ranges. So the ranges, there's nothing stopping us from using the ranges. There's nothing stopping us about using all of these toys on the ranges. There's lots of things we want to do. I don't want to say in a podcast because I'm working on it, because basically they play stupid games. They'll win stupid prizes. So I'm watching to see, because we have the licensing like you do for everything, and we'll just see where the dust settles, because we're going to have some fun with this. If they're going to be stupid, we can be stupid back, right? As long as it follows through. And I'm lucky in Alberta. I have Dr. Terry Bryant.
You've got Tall Terry.
Yeah, Tall Terry.
Yeah.
She is epic. And
she's a hoot.
She's a hoot, but she's also, they're giving her $900 million this year, $4 million next year, and $7 million the year after. So she gets to hire 40 more people. And so what the plan for Alberta is that basically they're taking all the Firearms Act stuff from Miramichi. All Miramichi is a mailbox. It gets there and it's for Alberta. They pack it into an additional mail bag, and it gets couriered to Alberta. That's the plan. They don't do anything for Alberta.
Nice.
In Miramichi, because they said that's where the backlog is. It's like, oh, it's COVID, or because we only have 3 secure connections, so we can only no. Like licenses, they go because the mandate the Firearms Center's mandate is that registrations are supposed to be done in 45 days. That's their mandate.
Yeah.
We're at 18 months now. So 45, she says, we need to be at 45 days. That's what the Firearms Act, like that, what the service provider is supposed to do. That's what we should be doing. 45 days should be the longest. With ones with that need investigation should be 45 days.
Yep.
And but she's going to do all the licensing is going to be done in Alberta. So she says they're in Alberta. If they need checks, they need to have people make phone calls. Why are we not doing Alberta?
And the licensing is where the concentration should be.
Yeah.
Transfers, I mean, you obviously have 1 or 2 handguns. When you buy your
Maybe
third
3.
or fourth handgun, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, that should be automatic.
Yeah.
Right? If there's a problem giving you your 4th handgun, that problem probably was there for the first one.
Yeah.
Once you've got, who cares? Just let them go through.
Yeah. So it's
business to business, it's automatic.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I'm really happy to see that right now it's good for Alberta. because we've got money because of oil and gas, and now's the time to do this, like to make this infrastructure spends while we can. And so I'm happy that we're doing that, and it's good because we're the client. Like there's so many handlers that people like the anti say, why are they spending that money on gun owners? Because we're the client, and there's a lot of us.
Yes.
There's a lot of us. They don't like. There's way more of us that have guns than you think. So we deserve good service in Alberta because we're paying the taxes on it.
Absolutely.
So let's just make it happen.
Yep.
Okay. And I think.
All right, JR, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, brother.
And
it's
hey,
good to get together.
Next year, sumo wrestling. This year, I know because of the car accident you couldn't. Yeah, I know.
Plates and stuff that got pushed into the old body, and other stuff which we won't discuss the viewers with, medical issues. But it's been great seeing you. Thanks for bringing the Shooting Edge and Target Sports east to see us here and join us at TACCOM.
It's really important.
It's been a ton.
It's really important that we come out, we support it, we make the show big, we get the people through. Like, if we don't do this, the Liberals win. They win by attrition, and you get that.
Yeah,
like
totally.
That's why your booth here. I love this. This is fun. But we have to keep fighting back. We have to put our money where our mouth is and fight back.
Yeah. And thanks to Chris Kembrell and Rooster and the guys at Ballistically Speaking podcast for giving us a chance. They're great guys, and Friday nights.
Well, let's not call them great
west,
guys.
7 o'clock east.
Yes.
7 o'clock west, 9 o'clock east.
Yeah.
They do a great job, and they're a ton of fun.
Oh,
and you and I have been on it a couple of times.
It's a hoot of a podcast.
It is a hoot of a podcast, and so we look forward to that.
Okay.
So thanks very much.
Scene.